Hello viewers, welcome back to my channel Legal Decipher. In the previous video, we had talked about chapter 28 of the Code of Criminal Procedure 1973. If you have not seen that video, you can go and check it. The link is in the description below. Today, we are going to talk about chapter 29 of the Code of Criminal Procedure. We'll go through the chapter and try to understand how the Criminal Procedure Code is followed and how the criminal courts work. So if you are new here, please like and subscribe to my channel so you can get the video notifications. So let's get started. So today we are going to talk about chapter 29, which explains appeals. So this chapter deals with procedures related to appeals that arise out of a criminal matter. So section 372 says no appeal to lie unless otherwise provided. It says that no appeal shall lie from any judgment or order of a criminal court except as provided for by this code or by any other law for the time being in force, provided that the victim shall have a right to prefer an appeal against any order passed by the court acquitting the accused or convicting for a lesser offence or imposing inadequate compensation. And such appeal shall lie to the court to which an appeal ordinarily lies against the order of conviction of such court. So basically what this section says is that only procedure to prefer an appeal is either through this code or through any other statute that provides such mechanism. So if you are to prefer an appeal against a criminal matter, then the only procedure to do so is through this code or through any other statute that provides such mechanism for preferring an appeal. Now proviso says that the victim has the right to prefer an appeal against any order that is passed by a criminal court. Either such order acquits the person or convicts him of a lesser punishment from that the victim expected. So basically if the victim is not satisfied with the order of the criminal court, then it may prefer an appeal, and those appeals will lie to that superior court where it ordinarily lies for such court who passed the order. Now section 373 talks about appeal from orders requiring security or refusal to accept or rejecting surety for keeping peace or good behavior. It says any person who has either been ordered under section 117 to give security for keeping the peace or of good behavior, or who is aggrieved by any order refusing to accept or rejecting a surety under section 121 may appeal against such order to the Court of Sessions. So whether the person was asked to give security under 117 for good behavior, or if the person is aggrieved because the court did not accept or rejected his surety under section 121, then in both of those cases the person may prefer an appeal before the sessions court against such order. Now provided that nothing in this section shall apply to persons the proceedings against whom are laid before a sessions judge in accordance with the provisions of subsection 2 or subsection 4 of section 122. So what does the proviso say? It says that this section does not apply to persons against whom a proceedings is going before the sessions judge under section 122 subsection 2 or 4. So whenever a proceeding is ongoing before a sessions judge under this section, that is section 122 subsection 2 or 4, then against that person the proviso says no appeal will be preferred against that person. So this section does not apply to that person. Now section 374 talks about appeals from convictions. It says that any person convicted on a trial held by a high court in its extraordinary original criminal jurisdiction may appeal to the Supreme Court. So when the high court exercises its extraordinary original criminal jurisdiction and passes an order, then any appeal that is preferred from it will have to be filed before the Supreme Court. Now what does subsection 2 say? It says any person convicted on a trial held by a sessions judge or an additional sessions judge, or on a trial held by any other court in which a sentence of imprisonment for more than 7 years has been passed against him or against any other person convicted at the same trial may appeal to the High Court. So, when any person is convicted on a trial that is held either before a sessions court or before an additional sessions court or before any other court in which sentence of imprisonment has been passed for more than 7 years against him or other person in the same trial. So in all these cases, if the person is to prefer an appeal, then he will have to prefer it before the High Court. So this subsection talks about all those cases where the person will have to prefer an appeal before the High Court. Now, what does subsection 3 say? It mentions those cases where the appeal is to be preferred before the Court of Sessions. It says, save as otherwise provided in subsection 2, any person, if he is convicted on a trial held by a metropolitan magistrate or assistant sessions judge or magistrate of the first class or second class, or if he is sentenced under section 325, or the person in respect of whom an order has been made or a sentence has been passed under section 360 by any magistrate, then in all these cases the person may appeal to the Court of Sessions. So when will the person prefer an appeal before the Court of Sessions? If any of these happens. If he is convicted on a trial that is held by a metropolitan magistrate, assistant sessions judge, magistrate of first class or second class, or he has been sentenced under section 325, or he has been sentenced under section 360 by any magistrate, in all these cases the person will prefer an appeal before the Court of Sessions. So let's move on to section 375. It says no appeal in certain cases when accused pleads guilty. So notwithstanding anything contained in section 374 where an accused person has pleaded guilty and has been convicted on such plea, there shall be no appeal. So when the person pleads guilty by himself, then he cannot prefer an appeal against the order passed by such court before whom he pleads guilty on the same offense. Now there are some conditions to that. It will happen only in the situations that are mentioned in clause A and B. It says that if the conviction order against which the appeal is to be preferred is given by the High Court, in that case no appeal shall lie from it. Or if the conviction is passed by a Court of Sessions, metropolitan magistrate or magistrate of the first or second class, then also no appeal shall lie from it except as to the extent of legality of the sentence. This is the exception. It means that if the sentence was passed disregarding any legal point which disturbs the legality of such sentence, then only the appeal can be preferred, otherwise not. Now, section 376 says that no appeal in petty cases. So notwithstanding anything contained in section 374, so we are not disturbing the provisions of section 374, but still there shall be no appeal by a convicted person in any of the following cases, such as where a High Court passes only a sentence of imprisonment for a term not exceeding 6 months or a fine not exceeding 1000 rupees or of both such imprisonment and fine, where a Court of Sessions or a metropolitan magistrate passes only a sentence of imprisonment for a term not exceeding 3 months or a fine not exceeding 200 rupees or of both such imprisonment and fine, where a magistrate of the first class passes only a sentence of fine not exceeding 100 rupees, or where in a case tried summarily a magistrate empowered to act under section 260 passes only a sentence of fine not exceeding 200 rupees. So in all these cases that are mentioned in clause A, B, C and D, these offences or these sentences will be considered as petty offences, and in all these petty offences an appeal won't be allowed against any sentence that is passed in those cases. Now, provided that an appeal may be brought against such sentence if any other punishment is combined with it. So only if a sentence is attached with the punishment, then only an appeal can be preferred against it. However, the conditions are that the sentence shall not be appealable merely on the ground that the person convicted is ordered to furnish security to keep the peace, or that a direction for imprisonment in default of payment of fine is included in the sentence, or that more than one sentence of fine is passed in the case if the total amount of fine imposed does not exceed the amount herein before specified in respect of the case. So these things are excluded. Merely a sentence passed on this ground won't be enough to entertain an appeal against such order if these conditions are there. These conditions also form a part of such petty offense, and they are not to be thought as something that would attract an appeal against them. Let's move on to section 377, which talks about appeal by the state government against sentence. So it says, save as otherwise provided in subsection 2, in any case of trial where the conviction was imposed by any court other than a high court, then the state government may direct the public prosecutor to present an appeal against the sentence on the ground of inadequacy. So the state government may also prefer for an appeal by the public prosecutor against an appeal if dissatisfied with such order. So that appeal will be approached for only if the state government feels dissatisfied with the order. Now, where will the appeal be preferred? It says before the court of sessions in the sentence is passed by the magistrate. So if the sentence was passed by the magistrate, then the appeal will be preferred before the court of sessions. But if the sentence was passed by any other court, then it will be preferred before the high court. Now, what happens in cases where the offense was investigated by an agency? So subsection 2 covers up those cases. It says that if such conviction is in a case in which the offense has been investigated by the Delhi Special Police Establishment constituted under the Delhi Special Police Establishment Act of 1946, or by any other agency empowered to make investigation into an offense under any central act other than this code, then in this case where the investigation of such offense was given to the Delhi Special Police Establishment and any other agency, then in those cases where an agency is involved in the investigation of that offense, then in those cases the same thing will happen. The concerned government will ask the public prosecutor to prefer an appeal in the same manner as we had read in subsection 1 on the ground of inadequacy. Now subsection 3 says that when an appeal has been filed against the sentence on the ground of its inadequacy, then the concerned court before whom the appeal is so filed shall not enhance the sentence except after giving to the accused a reasonable opportunity of showing cause against such enhancement. So the court will enhance the sentence only after hearing the accused, not ex parte. And while showing cause, the accused may plead for his acquittal or for the reduction of the sentence. So the accused has the option to either plead for acquittal or to plead for reduction of the sentence. Now section 378 talks about appeal in case of acquittal. It says, save as otherwise provided in subsection 2 and subject to the provisions of subsection 3 and 5, there are two persons who can prefer an appeal in cases of acquittal. They are the district magistrate and the state government. So the district magistrate may in any case direct the public prosecutor to present an appeal to the court of sessions from an order of acquittal passed by a magistrate in respect of a cognizable and non-bailable offence. So, the district magistrate has the power to prefer an appeal through the public prosecutor, and such appeal will be filed before the Court of Sessions in respect of a cognizable and non-bailable offence. Also, the state government may in any case direct the public prosecutor to present an appeal to the High Court from an original or appellate order of acquittal passed by any court other than a High Court, that is not an order under clause A, or an order of acquittal passed by the Court of Sessions in revision. So, the state government may also direct the public prosecutor to present an appeal before the High Court if the order of acquittal that was passed by any other court than a High Court, and that order does not fall under clause A, or is not an order of acquittal passed by the Court of Sessions in a revision case. And subsection 2 says that if such investigation was done by any agency under the Delhi Special Police Establishment Act or other act passed by the central government, then in that case, if such an order of acquittal is passed that has been investigated by the Delhi Special Police Establishment constituted under the Delhi Special Police Establishment Act, or by any other agency empowered to make investigation into an offence under any such central act that does not fall under this code, then the central government may also direct the public prosecutor to present an appeal, and such appeal will be preferred before the Court of Session if order of acquittal was passed by a magistrate in respect of a cognizable and non-bailable offence. So, if the offence that was committed was of a cognizable and non-bailable in nature, then if such offence was tried and awarded with a sentence by a magistrate, and if such offence was tried by a magistrate and the result of that came to an acquittal, then the appeal of such order of acquittal will be preferred before the Court of Session. Now, the same appeal will be preferred before the High Court from an original or appellate order of an acquittal that was passed by any court other than a High Court, and if the order was not an order of acquittal passed by the Court of Sessions in revision. So, when will that appeal be preferred before the High Court? If it was from an original or appellate order and the acquittal order was passed by any other court than a High Court. So, it was not a High Court, it was any other court. And if the order was not an order of acquittal passed by the Court of Sessions in revision. Now, subsection 3 says that no appeal to the High Court under subsection 1 or subsection 2 shall be entertained except with the leave of the High Court. So, in order to prefer an appeal before the High Court under the foregoing subsections, a special leave from the High Court needs to be obtained by the person who is preferring such an appeal. So, he will first have to take the leave of the High Court, and then only appeal will be heard before the High Court or entertained before the High Court. Now, subsection 4 says that if such an order of acquittal is passed in any case instituted upon complaint, and the High Court on the application made to it by the complainant in this behalf grants special leave to appeal from the order of acquittal, the complainant may present such an appeal to the High Court. So, if the High Court allows leave to prefer an appeal against an order of acquittal to the complainant in a case that was registered on the basis of a complaint, and the complainant files application before the High Court, so the conditions shall be that the appeal is to be preferred before the High Court and a leave is to be taken prior hand to that. Now, when will the High Court allow such leave? If the order is of an acquittal and it was coming out of a trial, the initiation of which trial was made on the basis of a complaint. So there was a complaint that filed in the lower court, and an order of acquittal was the outcome of such complaint. Now the complainant has come before the High Court and he has filed an application that I want to challenge that order. So in that case, the High Court will prefer the appeal only after granting special leave to him, that yes, you can move the appeal before this High Court. Now subsection 5 says that no application under subsection 4 for the grant of special leave to appeal from an order of acquittal shall be entertained by the High Court after the expiry of 6 months where the complainant is a public servant, and 60 days in every other case, computed from the date of that order of acquittal. So what will be the limitation period of preferring such appeal, or for preferring to take a special leave? So the limitation period will be 6 months for the public servant and 2 months for others, where the public servant or such other person is the complainant who is trying to prefer an appeal before the High Court and obtain a special leave. And subsection 6 says that if any case the application under subsection 4 for the grant of special leave to appeal from an order of acquittal is refused, then no appeal from that order of acquittal shall lie under subsection 1 or subsection 2. So if the special leave is refused, then the appeal will not be entertained. As simple as that. Now let's move on to the next section, that is section 379. It talks about appeal against conviction by High Court in certain cases. So it says that where the High Court has on appeal reversed an order of acquittal of an accused person. So the accused person was acquitted in the lower court. Now an appeal has been preferred before the High Court and the High Court reversed that order of acquittal, and this person is now convicted and the High Court has sentenced him to death or to imprisonment for life or to imprisonment for a term of 10 years or more. Then he may appeal to the Supreme Court. So the next appeal will be preferred before the Supreme Court. Now section 380 talks about special right of appeal in certain cases. It says, notwithstanding anything contained in this chapter, when more persons than one are convicted in one trial and an appealable judgment or order has been passed in respect of any of such persons, all or any of the persons convicted at such trial shall have the right to appeal. So it doesn't matter how many persons are accused in a case. There may be n number of persons that are accused in a case. If a judgment is passed in that case that is in respect of any of such person, then all or any of such person who are convicted at such trial shall have the right to appeal. So the appeal can be preferred by a single person or a group of persons that were involved in the same case, and upon them the conviction has been imposed. Now section 381 talks about appeal to Court of Sessions, how heard. So this section basically talks about the procedure of appeals and their hearings before the Court of Sessions. It says, subject to the provisions of subsection 2, an appeal to the Court of Session or Sessions Judge shall be heard by the Sessions Judge or by an additional Sessions Judge. So when an appeal is preferred before the Court of Sessions, then such appeal will be heard by either the Court of Sessions Judge or by the additional Sessions Judge. Now provided that an appeal against a conviction on a trial that was held by a magistrate of the second class may be heard and disposed by an assistant Sessions Judge or a chief judicial magistrate. So whenever a conviction has been passed by a magistrate of the second class, then that order will be challenged in the court of the assistant Sessions Judge or the chief judicial magistrate. These two judges or magistrates will be hearing the appeal that was preferred against the conviction held by the second class magistrate. Now, subsection 2 says that an additional sessions judge, assistant sessions judge, or a chief judicial magistrate shall hear only such appeals as the sessions judge of the division may, by general or special order, make over to him, or as the High Court may, by special order, direct him to hear. So, generally, it will be the sessions judge who will be allocating the cases to the additional sessions judge, assistant sessions judge, or a chief judicial magistrate, or the High Court may also, by special order, direct him to hear such. Now, let's move on to section 382, which talks about petition of appeal. So, every appeal shall be made in the form of a petition in writing presented by the appellant or his pleader. Appeal will be preferred in the form of a petition. That petition will have to be in the form of a writing. Now, it will be presented by the appellant or by his pleader, and every such petition shall be accompanied by a copy of the judgment or order appealed against. So, the petition will be accompanied by the copy of the judgment or order against which such appeal is prayed for. Now, section 383 talks about procedure when appellant in jail. So, if the appellant is in jail, he may present his petition of appeal and the copies accompanying the same. So, if the person who is in jail custody is to prefer an appeal, then he will have to do so by presenting his petition to the officer in charge of the jail, who shall thereupon forward such petition and the accompanying copies to the proper appellate court. Now, let's move on to section 384, which talks about summary dismissal of appeal. So, it says that if upon examining the petition of appeal and copy of the judgment received under section 382 or section 383, the appellate court considers that there is no sufficient ground for interfering, it may dismiss the appeal summarily. So, say for example, if the appeal is preferred for, the leave is allowed. Now, the court is going through the entire contents of the appeal and thereafter is of the view that there are no sufficient grounds for interfering into the order that was passed by the lower court, then the appeal will be dismissed summarily. However, there are some conditions mentioned in the provisos. It says, provided that no appeal presented under section 382 shall be dismissed unless the appellant or his pleader has had a reasonable opportunity of being heard in support of the same. So, it will not be passed ex parte. Now, no appeal presented under section 383 shall be dismissed except after giving the appellant a reasonable opportunity of being heard in support of the same, unless the appellant court considers that the appeal is frivolous or that the production of the accused in custody before the court would involve such inconvenience as would be disproportionate in the circumstances of the case. So, the appellant will be heard. He will be given a reasonable opportunity of being heard in support of the appeal that he has preferred for. Now, if after hearing him, the appeal appears to be frivolous, or if the court thinks the production of the accused before the court in respect of that particular appeal or the subject matter would be inconvenient, then either on the ground of that appeal being frivolous or on the ground of the production of the accused being inconvenient, then also the appeal will be dismissed. Now, no appeal presented under section 383 shall be dismissed summarily until the period allowed for preferring such appeal has been expired. So, until the limitation period of preferring such appeal has expired, that appeal will not be summarily dismissed. Also, it says in subsection 2 that before dismissing an appeal under this section, the court may call for the record of the case. So, whenever an appeal is preferred, the lower court record will always be called for. And subsection 3 says that where the appellate court dismissing an appeal is under this section a court of session or a chief judicial magistrate, then it shall record its reasons for doing so. So when the appellate court is not a high court, it is a court of sessions or a chief judicial magistrate, then if such court is dismissing such appeal, then he shall also record the reasons for doing so. And subsection 4 says that where an appeal presented under section 383 has been dismissed summarily under this section, and the appellate court finds that another petition of appeal duly presented under section 382 on behalf of the same appellant has not been considered by it. So there are two appeals that are preferred by the appellant. One is under section 383 that has been dismissed summarily, and the other is under section 382 that is pending before that court. Then the court may, notwithstanding anything contained in section 393, if satisfied that it is necessary in the interest of justice to hear and dispose such appeal in accordance with law, then he will do so. Now let's move on to section 385 that talks about procedure for hearing appeals not dismissed summarily. So if the appellate court does not dismiss the appeal summarily, it shall cause notice of the time and place at which such appeal will be heard to be given. So if the appeal is not rejected, say for example the appeal is allowed for hearing by the court. Now the appellate court, if he does not dismiss the appeal summarily, then he will in the next step cause notice of the time and place of such appeal as to where and when it will be heard. So the next procedure after admitting an appeal by an appellate court is to serve notice upon these persons. The persons upon which such notice will be given are the appellant or his pleader, to such officer of the state government as the state government may appoint in this behalf. If the appeal is from a judgment or conviction in a case instituted upon complainant, then to the complainant. And if the appeal is under section 377 or 378, then to the accused. So all these persons will be given a notice of such date and time of the hearing of such appeal, and shall also furnish such officer, complainant and accused with a copy of the grounds of appeal. So along with the notice of the date and time of the hearing, a copy of the grounds of appeal will also be provided to the officer, complainant and accused. Now subsection 2 says the appellate court shall then send for the record of the case, if such record is not already available in the court, and hear the parties. So after serving the notice, next procedure is that the court will call for the record from the lower court. The appellate court will call for the record of the lower court when such record is not already available in that court. And then after, when the record of the lower court has been received by the appellate court, then the appellate court will hear the parties. Now provided that if the appeal is only as to the extent of the legality of the sentence, the court may dispose of the appeal without sending for the record. So when the appeal is only on the grounds extended to the legality of the sentence, that whether such sentence can be passed by law, when that is the subject matter, that is only the subject matter of that appeal, then the court may dispose of the appeal without even sending for the record. That means the court will not call up the record for that particular issue. It will dispose of the appeal on the grounds of legality of that sentence only. Now subsection 3 says where the only ground for appeal from a conviction is the alleged severity of the sentence. So when the ground of the appeal is only that the conviction that was imposed upon the accused was severe to that the accused deserved, then the appellant shall not, except with the leave of the court, urge or to be heard in support of any other ground. So when the severity of the conviction is the only ground for appeal, then the complainant shall not argue upon or he shall not be heard upon any other ground. Now let's move on to section 386 that talks about powers of the appellate court. So after perusing such a record and hearing the appellant or his pleader, if it appears, and the public prosecutor, if he appears, and in the case of an appeal under section 377 or section 378, the accused, if he appears. So all of these persons that are talked about here, if they appear, and the appellate court may, if it considers that there is no sufficient ground for interfering, dismiss the appeal. So when these persons appear before the court and the court is of the ground that there is no sufficient grounds for interfering into that particular order against which the appeal is sought against, then that court will dismiss the appeal, or may, in an appeal from an order or acquittal, reverse such order and direct that further inquiry be made, or that the accused be retried or committed for trial, as the case may be, or find him guilty and pass sentence on him according to law. So the court may either dismiss the appeal or may do these things, out of which clause A talks about the power of the appellate court to reverse the order of acquittal and direct a further inquiry or the retrial of the accused. For the purposes of retrial, the appellate court may also commit the accused for trial, or it may find him guilty and pass a sentence on him according to law. So all these powers of the appellate court can be exercised upon the accused. Now, in an appeal from a conviction, the appellate court may also reverse the order and the finding and the sentence and acquit or discharge the accused. So just like we read in clause A that an order for acquittal can be reversed and a further inquiry can be initiated against the accused, or he may be committed for retrial, or he may be found guilty and a sentence may be passed against him according to law. Just like that, where an appeal is preferred against a conviction, then that order can also be reversed, and acquittal or discharge of the accused may also ordered by such appellate court. The court may also order him to be retried by a court of competent jurisdiction subordinate to such appellate court, or he may also be committed for trial. And that appellate court will also have the power to alter the finding, maintaining the sentence. So the finding only can also be altered without disturbing the sentence that was passed. Or the appellate court may also, with or without altering the finding, alter the nature or the extent or the nature and extent of the sentence. So he may not alter the finding, he may only alter the nature or extent, or both the nature and the extent of the sentence, but it shall not enhance the same. Now clause C says that in an appeal for enhancement of sentence, appellate court may also reverse the finding and sentence and acquit or discharge the accused, or order him to be retried by a court of competent jurisdiction to try the offence, and alter the finding, maintaining the sentence, or with or without altering the finding, or alter the nature of the extent or the nature and the extent of the sentence so as to enhance the sentence or reduce the same. Now clause D says that in an appeal from any other order, alter or reverse such order. And clause E talks about make any amendment or any consequential or incidental order that may be just or proper. So the appellate court has a number of powers regarding an appeal. He can reverse an order, alter an order, he can entirely change or reduce the sentence, he can only change and alter the findings without disturbing the sentence, or he may also change or alter the nature and extent of the finding. He may commit the person for trial again, he may send him for retrial, or he may acquit him. and discharge him, or he may also reverse the order of acquittal and convict him or pass any sentence that is according to law. So all these powers can be exercised by the appellate court under this section, provided that the sentence shall not be enhanced unless the accused has had an opportunity of showing cause against such enhancement. So the accused will be given a proper chance for showing cause, and provided further that the appellate court shall not inflict greater punishment for the offence which in its opinion the accused has committed. So appellate court will not inflict a greater punishment for the offence that was committed by the accused than might have been inflicted for that offence by the court passing the order of the sentence under appeal. So the appellate court will not enhance the sentence to a certain extent that was not inflicted by the court who actually passed the sentence. Now let's move on to section 387 that talks about judgments of subordinate appellate court. So the rules contained in chapter 27 as to the judgment of a criminal court of original jurisdiction shall apply so far as may be practicable to the judgment in appeal of a court of session or chief judicial magistrate, provided that unless the appellate court otherwise directs, the accused shall not be brought up or required to attend to hear judgment delivered. So unlike the court of the magistrate, the accused in this case will not have to be present before the court in appeal. Now section 388 talks about order of high court on appeal to be certified to lower court. So whenever a case is decided on appeal by the high court under this chapter, it shall certify its judgment or order to the court by which the finding, sentence or order was appealed against. So where it was recorded or passed, that court will be certified here. And if such court is that of a judicial magistrate other than a chief judicial magistrate, then the high court's judgment or order shall be sent through the chief judicial magistrate. So first the order will be received by the chief judicial magistrate and then it will be forwarded to the concerned court. And if such court is that of an executive magistrate, then the high court's judgment or order shall be sent through the district magistrate. So if it is passed by an executive magistrate, then the high court's judgment or order that was appealed against such executive magistrate's order will be sent through the hands of the district magistrate. Now subsection 2 says the court to which the high court certifies its judgment or order shall thereupon make such orders conformable to the judgment or order of the high court, and if necessary the record shall be amended in accordance therewith. So the court to which the high court has certified its judgment or order shall thereupon, after receiving such high court's order or judgment, do the necessary amendments in his record as necessary and make it conformable to the judgment or order that is passed by the high court. Now let's move on to section 389 that talks about suspension of sentence pending the appeal, release of appellant on bail. So this section basically talks about the stay of execution of the order that was passed by the lower court and also the release of the appellant on bail, provided that the appellate court shall, before releasing a convicted person on bail or on his own bond who is convicted of an offence punishable with death or imprisonment for life or for a term not less than 10 years, he shall give opportunity to the public prosecutor for showing cause in writing against such release. So where the case is concerning a convicted person who is been convicted with an offence that is punishable with death or imprisonment for life or for a term not less than 10 years, then in that case the appellate court shall, before releasing the convicted person on bail, properly give opportunity to the public prosecutor for showing cause in writing against the order of such release as to why that person should not be released. Now, provided further that in cases where a convicted person is released on bail, it shall be open to the public prosecutor to file an application for the cancellation of the bail. So the public prosecutor can pray for cancellation of the bail. Now, subsection 2 says that the power conferred by this section on an appellate court may be exercised also by the High Court in the case of an appeal by a convicted person to a court subordinate thereto. So High Court will also have the power to exercise the provisions of this section. Now, subsection 3 says that where the convicted person satisfied the court by which he is convicted that he intends to present an appeal. Say for example, the Court of Sessions has passed an conviction against that person. Now that person has to satisfy the Sessions Court that he will prefer an appeal before the High Court. So this is the situation that we are talking here. Now in that case, the court shall order that the convicted person be released on bail, unless there are special reasons for refusing that bail for such period as will afford sufficient time to present the appeal and obtain the orders of the appellate court under subsection 1. And the sentence of imprisonment shall, so long as he is so released on bail, be deemed to be suspended. So the court that has passed the conviction has the authority to release that person on bail for allowing him to prefer an appeal before the appellate court. And the situations where such release on bail will be allowed are where the sentence of imprisonment shall, so long as he is so released on bail, be deemed to be suspended in cases where such person is on bail and is sentenced to imprisonment for a term not exceeding 3 years, or where the offence of which such person has been convicted is a bailable one and he is on bail. So these are the conditions that is to be fulfilled for such release on bail. Now subsection 4 says that when the appellant is ultimately sentenced to imprisonment for a term or to imprisonment for life, the term during which he is so released shall be excluded in computing the term for which he is so sentenced. So the sentence will not include the time that he was so released in bail. It will exclude that time. Now section 390 talks about arrest of accused in appeal from acquittal. When an appeal is presented under section 378, the High Court may issue a warrant directing that the accused be arrested and brought before it or any subordinate court. So the High Court has the power to issue a warrant to direct the arrest of an accused who has presented an appeal before it under section 378. And the custody of such person may be taken by the High Court. That means that person can either be brought before the High Court or he may be brought before any other subordinate court as the High Court may direct. And the court before which he is brought may commit him to prison pending the disposal of the appeal or admit him on bail. So he will be taken before the court and that court will decide whether to send him to prison until the disposal of the appeal or to release him on bail. Now section 391 talks about appellate court may take further evidence or direct it to be taken. So in dealing with any appeal under this chapter, the appellate court, if it thinks additional evidence is necessary to be taken, shall record its reasons for doing so and take such evidence. And he may do so either itself or he may direct any other magistrate who is subordinate to him or any court of sessions or a magistrate if such appellate court is a high court. So the court may either himself take the evidence or he may direct the subordinate court to take such evidence if he thinks it is necessary to take such evidence while entertaining such appeal. Now when the additional evidence is taken by the court of sessions or the magistrate, it or he shall certify such evidence to the appellate court. So after taking the evidence, it will certify such evidence to the appellate court, and such court shall thereupon proceed to dispose of the appeal. Now the accused or his pleader shall have the right to be present when the additional evidence is taken, and the taking of evidence under this section shall be subject to the provisions of chapter 23 as if it were an inquiry. Now section 392 talks about procedure where judges of court of appeals are equally divided. So when an appeal under this chapter is heard by the High Court or before a bench of judges and they are divided equally in the opinion as to what to do with this appeal, and when their opinions clash to a draw, then another judge of that court shall deliver his opinion and the judgment or order shall follow that opinion. So that extra judge will be a tiebreaker, provided that in one of the judges constituting the bench or where the appeal is laid before another judge under this section, the judge so requires, the appeal shall be reheard and decided by a larger bench of the judges. So where it is so disputed, it will be reheard and it will be decided by a larger bench of judges than the previous one. Move on to section 393. It talks about finality of judgment and order on appeal. So judgments and orders passed by the appellate court upon an appeal shall be final, except in the cases provided in section 377, 378 and 384 subsection 4 or chapter 30. So if the judgment or order has been passed by the appellate court, then it shall be final, except in these cases where it was provided by the section 377, 378, 384 subsection 4 or chapter 30. Now provided that notwithstanding the final disposal of an appeal against conviction in any case, the appellate court may hear and dispose of on the merits, and an appeal against acquittal under section 378 arising out of the same case, or an appeal for the enhancement of sentence under section 377 arising out of the same case. So these two appeals will also be heard on the merits and may be disposed of by the appellate court. Now let's move on to the last section, that is section 394 of this chapter, that talks about abatement of appeals. So every other appeal under section 377 or 378 shall finally abate on the death of the accused. So when will it cease? It will cease on the death of the accused. Every other appeal under this chapter except an appeal from a sentence or fine shall finally abate on the death of the appellant. So where the appellant is dead, then only the appeal will cease to be. And provided that where the appeal is against a conviction and sentence of death or of imprisonment and the appellant dies during the pendency of the appeal, any or his near relatives may within 30 days of the death of the appellant apply to the appellate court for leave to continue the appeal, and if leave is granted, the appeal shall not abate. So the appeal will not cease if within 30 days, that is 1 month, of the death of the appellant, his legal representative moves before the court and files an application of leave petition, that praying before the court that such legal representative may be allowed to continue with the appeal, and if such leave is granted by the court, then the appeal shall not abate. Now in this section, near relative means parent, spouse, lineal descendant, brother or sister. So that's all in this video. If you like my videos, then don't forget to smash the like button and subscribe to my channel. Thank you so much for watching this video.